Obviously, Pfizer, they know what they're doing, making Kelsey the face of the company, using a celebrity like him to lure in sports fan and a younger demographic to buy into the COVID vaccine. But does that political tactic work? To shed some light on this, along with a whole array of topics, I am now joined by Gavin, president of the New York Young Republicans Club. Gavin, how are you today?
I'm great, Charlie. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So let's get into it from the perspective at which I was just addressing. So we continually see the left using cultural icons, Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift, also another one. Interestingly enough, they're dating now. A lot of debate whether that's a legitimate relationship. But they're using people like this, celebrities, to push woke products, also woke political agendas. It's clearly working. Otherwise, I don't think the left would be sinking their teeth into these people as much as they are. But before we get into it, let's take a look at the Pfizer ad in which Kelsey starred in recently.
Travis, did you know you can get this season's COVID-19 shot when you get your flu shot?
Two things at once.
Two things at once! Two things at once! I'll have the two things at once, please. Now back to two things at once. Two things at once.
That's not two things at once.
Mom!
All right. So from the looks of it, they're clearly glamorizing the COVID shot, the COVID booster. This doesn't at all scream Pfizer to me. I mean, to put Kelsey in this position was just rather odd. But the question is, like I said, it's clearly working. It's having the influence they want. But why is the right not doing the same thing to influence voters? And what is it going to take at this point for them to capture this mainstream audience that they're looking for?
Well, look, I think broadly speaking, the right has a massive problem penetrating the culture, whether it's the arts, whether it's even sports, which really should be our domain. We're constantly on the retreat. We're constantly on the back foot. The thing I will push back on you, though, is to say that, is this fully working? I think it's waning. I think their influence is waning. I think they need to do these, frankly, pretty cheesy ads with NFL players to really push the message home. Why? Because they see, younger people are beginning to drift away. I mean, there's an inherent, counterculture built into being young. Whatever the orthodoxy is, whatever the elites are, whatever the man is, so to speak, you want to be, against that. And, maybe in the 1960s, the establishment was conservative, but now the establishment is, super liberal, actually leftist. So you're starting to see Gen Z, the Zoomers as they're called, kind of push back a bit. And I think what they're doing is they see the trend lines, the kind of the left-wing media executives, they see the trend lines and they want to plant seeds with, commercials like this and whatever it may be. So they're still really, doubling down on this cultural fight. And we have to understand as conservatives, Republicans, that we can't just fight politically, we have to fight culturally, spiritually, and all the rest.
Yeah, so what did you think about, just as one example, when Vivek decided to get on TikTok, which was something we haven't seen from most of the older conservatives, at least those that are running for the presidency?
So TikTok's weird because TikTok, obviously I have my issues with it being under the CCP's control and all the rest, but as a platform, it really doesn't penalize conservatives or, censor conservatives in the way some other platforms do. Vivek doing it, Vivek, whatever his name is, him doing it, he could be a little cringy. We saw his rapping the other month.
We did see that, yeah.
I give him props for trying. Maybe he tries a little bit too hard. I think that's his biggest problem. He's a bit of a tryhard. But listen, if he wants to, dive into those waters, I understand why he's doing it. There's definitely a point to be made there. I definitely do not respect someone like, Nikki Haley coming out talking about TikTok and her daughters doing dance videos on the app. So it's pick your lane.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a lot of things that the younger generation, like you just mentioned, the Zoomers are seeing through, right? They're not stupid. Another idea is that the idea of meritocracy has almost completely vanished in a lot of senses. For example, we saw ESPN pushing a race-baiting narrative. They have a new show out that highlights black athletes, even though, interestingly enough, it was just announced a few days ago by the company's president, CEO, that they were steering clear of being involved in the race wars. But take a look at this, and you can tell me what you think.
I spoke to athletes and experts to explore issues at the intersection of race, sports, and society today.
If you advocate for black people in the United States, there is a price to pay. Why is that price so high?
Okay, so not only this, but Gavin, also, after the Black Lives Matter protests, the S&P 100 added more than 300,000 jobs. 94% of those went to people of color. Yeah. So all of these things being said, have you noticed an attitude shift in Gen Z and also millennials in terms of seeing stuff like this happen?
People are definitely realizing it. It's being pushed down their throats constantly. And, you see this, basically this propaganda. I mean, people used to watch sports to get away from politics, to get away from all, current events and to bring people together. Now they're tuning into politics. You got the Black National Anthem. You got these little segments that they're doing. It's constant. It's in their face. It's like too much. It's cringy. And I think young people see it and they're constantly inundated with it. And not just, when they come home to watch a game. They're also getting it at school or on college campuses or wherever else. So I think it's just so overwhelming. People are just kind of repulsed and disgusted. And I think it's helping us, but we need to be there to galvanize, people's, pushing back on it. We need to be there to actually offer an alternative and say, no, this is not how the country needs to be run. We don't need to have this constant racialization of our society, constantly talking about race, making everything about race. We can be the country we were 20, 30 years ago when, it's seemingly things were a lot better. I mean, we didn't have these same types of, discussions in the early 2000s or the 90s. It wasn't that long ago. So we can return to that. I think young people would like to return to that. And I think everyone is getting sick of it. And I think the only people that are really buying into this stuff is a certain vocal minority of the country that are in positions of power, whether it's on, Madison Avenue with the advertising agencies or in corporate America in the boardrooms. I mean, they're a vocal minority. They're organized, but they're certainly not the majority of the country, especially young people.
Yeah, well, there's one man who's trying to get us back to that sane place. I'm obviously talking about former President Donald Trump. Every time something happens to him, this continual witch hunt, I mean, he's 4 indictments in, he's, embroiled in a civil fraud case right now. It's never ending, but we're seeing his poll numbers continually rise. The latest poll showing that he has a 57-point lead. The idea of any other candidate catching up at this point, it's laughable. I mean, we can just be honest. So why at this point, knowing that his lead is so outstanding, and also the fact that we know and we see time and time again the government is being weaponized, have all the other candidates not just said, listen, this is time for us to rally behind President Trump and put him in a position where we're unified?
Listen, I mean, I would welcome that. I know the president's team recently put out a statement saying, cancel the last debate. Let's, start focusing the RNC's resources on, a litany of other issues in anticipation of the general election. I mean, he has never polled this well. And frankly, no presidential contender has polled this well in a primary in decades. And then he's also polling amazing in the general election, which people fail to mention. This wasn't the case in 2020. This wasn't the case in 2016. So we're definitely seeing a historic resurgence of the president's popularity in the primary and in the general election. And you have these other, frankly, these clowns who are in it for, they want a CNN gig, they want to build their email list, they're trying to build their brand. It's ego-driven, it's petty-driven, it's donor-driven. All they're doing is holding the party back from pivoting to the general election. And that's why President Trump has done rallies in places like Pennsylvania and in Michigan with the auto workers, because he's already made the pivot to the general election. But there's no catching up now. I mean, we're what, 3 months away or 4 months away from the first contest. I mean, this entire primary is over, and it's been over, and the polls continue to rise. He's being seen as a martyr. People are rallying to him because of these cases, because of the civil case, the criminal case. It's the complete opposite of what the consultants said. They said people would run from him. No, they're running to him.
Well, and it's interesting because there are different groups around the country, minorities in particular, who are now starting to really garner more support for President Trump as well. And it was interesting because just on social media, I saw yesterday, there's a rapper, her name is Sexy Red. She's a very...
Not on my Spotify, but yes.
Not on mine as well, but she's a very young black rapper. And she just came out and said that there are a lot of people now who support President Trump, and she's one of them, which is something you would not expect to hear ordinarily from someone like this.
Yeah.
So,
no, I mean, it's crazy to see. I mean, we were just mentioning TikTok. You go on TikTok, you see people like these man on the street videos. They're approaching, people that you wouldn't expect them to be Trump supporters. Many Hispanics, many blacks, many Asians, many younger people, and they're all coming out for Trump. And if you look at the numbers he was able to poll even last cycle, I mean, he had historic showing among working class Hispanic communities, working class black communities. He's building a coalition that actually transcends the Republican Party. It's a coalition that can win states states in the Midwest, in Michigan, in PA, in Wisconsin. These are states that Republicans haven't won before Trump since Reagan. So he's broadening the coalition, and he's doing it by just being authentic. It's not pandering. It's not consultant-driven. It's not focus group-driven. They just like him for him and his authenticity, which goes a long way in the age of social media. And you're seeing it, you're seeing his numbers across the board in cohorts that we never thought possible for a Republican.
So because his support is so booming, wouldn't it make sense for all the other candidates to use the massive resources that they've raised from their campaigns to fight the left and help the Republican Party as a whole instead of looking to continually fight each other?
I mean, I would argue that. I mean, obviously, that ends the gravy train for a certain select few who are profiting off this primary, and they get to do massive contracts, consulting gigs, ad buys, whatever it is. I mean, the entire thing is a racket, and that's really what it appears to be. I mean, you watch the kiddie debates on television. It's a joke. I mean, everyone watches it, and then Trump's polls go up, and he wasn't even there because they just see we don't want the rest of this field. We want Trump. We see the rest of the field. We've seen enough. No need to continue this. If they had some self-respect, they would drop out. I think that many of them will be dropping out before the first contest, before some of them get embarrassed. But, until that happens, we're in it for, the next few months. And, they're going to keep spending their money. And the party's only going to grow further divided while the left is preparing to counter Trump. Okay,
just hypothetically, if this were to be the course of action that the candidates would potentially take, do you think the donors would ever go for that?
I think the donors are, furious, and I think they're looking for answers, and they're throwing money at the wall, and it's not sticking. And, they're not going to allow many of these candidates to do the right thing. And I think that's the problem. I think there's too much money in American politics. I think it's influencing things in a distorted way. And because of that, that's why we're seeing this clown show continue.
A clown show it is, especially what's happening right now with Kevin McCarthy obviously being ousted as House Speaker. And now prominent Republicans are calling on Trump to step into that position, something that would be kind of mind-blowing. Yeah. But obviously, unprecedented measures call for unprecedented moves. Do you see something like that actually happening? Because Trump has said he's willing to do whatever it takes to help the party.
I think President Trump would do it. I think it'd be hilarious to at least have a vote on it, and I would love to see him with the gavel. He posted on Truth with his gavel pick. It was very funny. I don't know if he's going to have the votes. I mean, believe it or not, I think even though he has this, we're talking about this overwhelming majority in the primary, 50, 60% plus, even more in some cases. But you look at the congressional makeup of the Republican House Conference, it's not reflective of that massive majority that he has, sadly. So I don't know if he'll have the numbers, but I think whoever will get, I think should be, an improvement in many ways. And look, I think this whole process was healthy. People are going to say, oh, well, the left is, they're united, all this, that, and the other. But, we're individualistic. We have our healthy debates within the party. We have our healthy debates on the right. And I think it's a good thing. And we're going to constantly strive for better leadership. And there were disagreements and there were a lot of fights. But here we are. I think at the end of the day, most Americans are more worried about what's happening at the grocery store with their bills, with their receipts, paying rent, paying their mortgage than they are about, internal inside baseball on Capitol Hill. It's just kind of outside of the realm of most people's, attention.
Yeah, well, obviously you just mentioned some of the issues plaguing our country. There are certain issues that are really, I would say, more pressing for the younger generations. One of them is that a new survey by Harris Poll for Bloomberg shows that nearly half of all young adults right now are living with their parents. 45% of people ages 18 to 29 are living at home. That's roughly the same level it was in the 1940s. And the biggest reason, Gavin, according to the survey, is that they're moving home to save money because they cannot afford to be on their own.
Yep.
Who do we have to blame? Bidenomics. What's the sentiment around young people? Because the whole goal, right? You go to high school. Yep. You hopefully go to college. A lot of people probably making the move to go to community colleges or in-state rather than maybe going to their dream schools before. Maybe not moving to New York City, which is a dream destination for so many now. Now they're living at home. What's the sentiment?
Well, the sentiment is that we're going through a lost generation. I mean, young people, they're not doing as well as their parents or their grandparents. It's the first in American history. We're seeing kind of what has been going on in Europe for many decades. You have people that just can't get jobs. They can't get good paying jobs. They can't move out. They can't afford, live on their own. They can't afford to start families. They can't afford to start a business, to do all the things that, their parents took for granted 20, 30, 40 years ago. It's sad. And it's reflective in, the media, the memes, the culture, the TikToks, whatever. It's all kind of nostalgic. People are kind of in like this era of, looking back oh, things used to be better. There's like it's not looking forward. It's kind of like this dreary nostalgia. And I think that kind of is like a veneer on the entire culture. And it's a sad state of affairs. And I think, the longer this goes on, it's only going to further divide young people along political lines. They're going to go radical in either direction. They're going to go hard left. They're going to go hard right because they're looking for answers because the status quo is not working. And honestly, talking about the previous segment with, the speakership battle, young people are going to look at that and say, we don't care about the status quo. We don't care about Kevin McCarthy. We don't care about the party. We're looking for something different because right now it's not working and it's not getting better. And it's a sad state of affairs and they can feel it. It's not just a poll. It's not just a survey. They can't afford rent. They can't move out. And sad times ahead.
It is sad times ahead. Also sad times for you as a native New Yorker and being Giants and Mets fan, as you just told me earlier.
We don't have a lot to be happy for on the sports front. So,
Gavin, I so appreciate you being here. I look forward to talking with you more in the coming months as we near what I would say is probably the most important election that we will ever experience. So thank you so much. Absolutely.